Happy Sunday, everybody. This is Zach at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I'm honored to be here with the Librarian of Virginia, Dr. Sandra Treadway, or my friend Sandy. Thank you so much for being with me this morning.
I'm delighted to join you and happy to talk with you about anything to do with history. That's my favorite topic.
Well, you are justly in a very prestigious position to be the Librarian of Virginia, and having met you within the last few weeks, I see why my friend John DiOrio, who was on the board of the Library of Virginia when you were hired, I see why he and his fellow board members chose you. They could not have a better person in that position.
Well, you are very, very kind to say that. John was a terrific board member and continues to be a terrific supporter of the library, and we are just so fortunate to have people such as him having served on our library board over the years from all across Virginia.
And we actually met about 3 weeks ago, but I want to talk before we get into questioning about our mutual friend, Mr. Bill Leidy. We were fortunate enough, you and I, to be you being the mistress of ceremonies and I being the moderator of an event honoring Mr. Bill Leidy, the former chief of staff to Governors Warner and Kane. It was the greatest honor of my career to be the moderator of that event. One of the biggest honors of my life, for sure. Bill is an extraordinary human being, as are you, and it was a pleasure to be in that company and just listening to Bill. Do you want to say something quickly about that event?
Yes, Bill Leidy, for those of your listeners who might not know him, is a long time public servant. He had pivotal roles in many state agencies. I'll say pivotal and transformative. And his last roles in formal state government, though he continues to work in public service, were as chief of staff to Governors Tim Kaine Mark Warner first, and then Tim Kaine. And everyone knew, including myself, the public Bill, but only a few were privileged to know what he actually did to make things happen over a 30-plus year career in public service. And the other evening was an event to highlight his new memoir, in which he tells a lot of those stories, tells about what happened behind the scenes and how gives tremendous insight into how government works. So it was a delight, I know, for me, and I'm sure for you, Zach, to hear some of those stories. And of course, I bought my copy right away and will be avidly reading even more. But he is an important public figure who really has had an impact on Virginia in the last 30-plus years. And it's wonderful to have a book that captures so much more than what just the public records of his career would do.
Yes, ma'am. And his book, I find, oftentimes you will find politics and politicians you can find it a very ugly and very gray world. Bill Leidy is nothing of that sort. He adds a great deal of color and life and humor to his career, and that is what you will find throughout the book. He is an extraordinary, kind, and generous human being, and that comes across when you read the book as well. And as you said, it was great to be there. For me, I was just happy to be in the building, let alone to be invited. He could have invited any of the most reputable, the most eminent reporters in the state of Virginia, and they would have been glad to be there, I'm sure. But he chose me, and that is something that I will always carry with me and be humbled by. With that being said, you spoke some about John DiOrio, who we know has served the library very well for many years, but his wife Linda is another hero of Virginia Public Service as the secretary of Rick Boucher for many, many years. She did so many great things for so many people, and she was the one who introduced Bill Leidy and myself, and she is also the one who invited me to the Library of Virginia event in Withville, where you and I met back on April 14th. Can you, and you've already talked about what John has done, concerning that event, can you speak to Linda and some of her accomplishments as well?
Well, I think when John was on the library board and he served, I went and double checked my memory. He served from 2003 to 2013 on the library board, and board members are eligible for 2 5-year terms. They would have to be reappointed in the middle of that.
Right.
But they cannot serve more than 10 years. So he served the maximum amount that one can, and served as chair of the library board as well from 2009 to 2010. We were fortunate because we felt as if we got a package deal, if you will. Oh. So because John was the official appointee, but with him, of course, came Linda, who is just a remarkable person, as you know. Very organized, very politically savvy, very committed to public service and to doing what's best for Virginia. And we were just privileged to get, as I say, both of them as part of the library family. When we planned the event in Withville, and that's an event to reacquaint ourselves or acquaint ourselves with Virginians who may not know much about us, we always look for someone in the area where we're doing that who has a connection with us, who cares about the library. And as our foundation was exploring what might work well, John and Linda just stepped up and said, "We'd love to host this for you." And Linda organized that event, which was held at the Withville Community Center, and did so much, down to the detail of tablecloths, flower arrangements, selection of refreshments, everything, and the invitation list, which of course is critical. You want to get people who are the right folks, people who care about history, care about libraries, care about culture, care about local government, and she did a remarkable job of that. So we are very indebted to both John and Linda for their continued support, and especially for that wonderful event 2 weeks ago.
In your tour across the state of Virginia, you end up making a stop to Withville, and why did you feel that a stop in Withville particularly was important?
Well, we know, located in Richmond, that it is challenging for some folks to get to our location here. And we also know, especially Southwest Virginia, I've had people there tell me this, that's why I can say this, they feel a little left out, a little forgotten sometimes by state agencies, by those based in Richmond. And so that's one of the things we very much want to do this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, I'm sure, later, but during our 200th anniversary, is go to people where they are, in communities where they live. And it just so happened the Monday after that Withville event, which was on a Friday evening, the library board was meeting in Roanoke. And so we thought, well, what's even a little bit southwest of Roanoke, that where we might have connections and folks who might want to host an event for us. Because we could rent a place and we could announce that we were there. But when someone who's from a community extends that invitation, it means so much more. And that's why when John and Linda said they would love to do it, we said, then Wytheville it is. And we thought that was a perfect place. And for me, attending that event on Friday night, we had another event on Saturday in Abington. So I just spent the weekend in Southwest Virginia, heading then to Roanoke for our board meeting on Monday. So for me, it was also a great opportunity to see more of what Southwest Virginia and really just get a better sense of what's there and a reaffirmation, I would say, of why it is so special.
And how did you feel about your visit to Wythe County? Do you feel it was a success, and how so?
Absolutely feel it was a success. The evening of our event, I spoke to so many people, many of whom knew a little bit about us, but many of whom didn't. Mm-hmm. I talked with some folks who have what I think many of us face these days. As you get older and you think about downsizing and streamlining a little bit, they've got family items, papers, documentation of their piece of history, and they're struggling to, and the next generation doesn't always have the space or the interest in housing those. So they're thinking, giving thought now to, well, where should we put those papers? Where is there an organization that's interested in them? And so I had several people talk to me about that. And my answer there, of course, is yes. If what you have tells the story of Wythe County and your family and its place in Virginia history, we would love to have it. But I always add the but. That is, if you would like it to be in Richmond, if you want it to stay closer to home. Of course, Wythe County has a wonderful genealogy organization and a historical society, so we would never try to bid against them for a collection. We certainly think a family makes that decision if they want it to stay close to home. But the advantage to depositing something at the Library of Virginia is being so centrally located, being major research library, there would be lots of people who might not know about those local institutions in Wytheville, but who 50 years from now, 100 years from now, might be coming here to do research, and they would uncover those materials. But those conversations when I was in Wytheville were wonderful, and questions I got about libraries and why they matter, and ways that people in your community could help their library and other libraries. Those were great conversations to have. And I think we made a lot of new friends who hopefully are now on our mailing list, will get our newsletter, and that we can have an ongoing connection with. So absolutely, the event was a success, and I was delighted, just delighted.
Well, you certainly have made such a friend in me. I don't know with my limitations that I will ever make it back to Richmond, but I don't know that I won't either. And I certainly would like to maintain a connection to make sure that we have important things in our area highlighted by the Library of Virginia as well. And speaking to that, based on your collections, based on some of the things that you own, how important would you say Wythe County's history is to that of the state as well as the nation?
Well, it's very important because following the American Revolution, Virginia was one of the most important gateways to Western settlement once the restriction of not going, west past the Appalachians that the British government had placed on us disappeared. And it was an area in the particularly in the early 19th century. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Wythe County was formed, was it 1790?
Yes.
And so the real burst of development happened after that. We see a lot of activity in that part of the state that was then opening the Southwest up to the eastern part of the state for economic growth and development, and then also a gateway to Virginians and others heading west into more what was considered then frontier lands, but which quickly became other states in the United States. So it's very important, and some of its history is unique, I guess you could say. And so we are very grateful to have quite a number of items in our collection that document Wythe County's early history and that whole region of the state as well. Because sometimes it's hard just to look at one county when there's a lot of overlap and a lot of mutual economic activity across county lines. So we have quite a number of things for that whole part of the state and the neighboring counties around Wytheville as well.
Right, and let's talk about some of those items that you have from Wythe County, and what would you say are the most imperative ones for Wythe County historians to come to Richmond to see?
Well, I'm going to answer that in a two-part, if that's all right, because some things that we have, you don't have to come to Richmond to see.
Okay.
We've got quite a number of records that we have digitized and are available for remote use, which I think is the place I would always advise people to start. Because if it's already been digitized and you can find it sitting at your desk at home, that would save you time when you did decide to come to the Library of Virginia. So among the things that we have available online are poll books for Wythe County. We have many circuit court records available. So one can go into a database that we have it's called the Chancery Records Index and Database, and you can go in there and you can type Wythe County in and come up with all of the records that we have, court records from the earliest years of Virginia, Wythe County's history. We also have Virginians between 1776 and 1865. If they wanted certain things to happen, only the General Assembly could make it happen. And that ranged from starting a new school to building a major new road to getting a divorce, etc. So Virginians petitioned during those years the General Assembly for redress on a wide variety of issues. Well, all of the legislative petitions, including all those from Wythe County, are available online. We've got war history records from both World War I and World War II online, and the survey of historic buildings that the Works Progress Administration did during the New Deal. So I could go on and on. But if you go into our online catalog and you search for Wythe County and search for these things, if it is an online collection, there will be a link that takes you right to the online portal for those collections. But digitizing collections is expensive and it's time consuming, and we have such a large collection. It'll be eons before it's all available electronically. So if you're interested in certain things, you have to come here and use the original records. So if I was looking the other day just to refresh my memory, and I didn't remember, but we have the records of the Wittsville and Grayson Turnpike Company from 1853 to 1901. There was also a Danville and Wittsville Turnpike Company, and we've got their records from the 1820s through the Civil War. We have the records of the Methodist Episcopal Church in the South Holston Conference that covers the Wittsville area. We've got Supreme Court of Appeals, order books, session books, and records from court cases that were heard down there. We've got lots of records of a local store, something called the Wolfenden Brothers General Store for the whole second half of the 19th century. And then, of course, I know it didn't happen in Wittsville, but it is of great interest in your area. We've got the records, or many records, associated with the famous Floyd Allen court case and shoot up in the courthouse that remains of great interest to people today. And that's just to mention a few things. We've got letters, family records, diaries, etc., from Worth County. So the very best way to figure out if we have something that you might be interested in, either looking at online or visiting us in Richmond, would be that our online catalog. It's on the Library of Virginia's website. You can search our catalog, and I think you'll find a gold mine of resources there.
And I'm very honored to say that you have very generously consented to add 2 of my publications to the Virginia History Collection, and I appreciate you doing that in blind faith without having read them first. But
well, they deal with your part of the state and your history, and that's what we collect, the histories of the people and places of the Commonwealth.
Well, I'm very honored to have Hazel Little Budd and Herb Cooley, the law enforcement legacy of my father, included in your catalog, and thank you for adding those.